The Baltic Sea, a seemingly placid expanse of water, has become a new battleground. Not one of open conflict with roaring jets or thundering tanks, but a clandestine theater of underwater warfare. Imagine the silent, invisible arteries of global communication and power, the submarine cables that bind nations together, becoming targets. These are not relics of a bygone era. They are the lifeblood of our digital age. Now picture these lifelines, these critical conduits, severed, damaged, or compromised. The effects are not just regional, but potentially global, and this terrifying prospect is no longer a fantasy. Russia's shadow fleet, a phantom armada, is turning this prospect into a chilling reality, and Finland has taken a stand. In the coming video, we will explore this cat-and-mouse game and unravel the truth. This story unfolds in several acts, each more gripping than the last. In the first part, we uncover the underbelly of Russia's shadow fleet and Finland's initial discovery. Then, we will delve into Estonia's rapid response and the international outcry, followed by an examination of the global stakes of this maritime chess game. In the fourth act, we'll focus on how NATO reacted to this crisis and the measures being proposed by the international community. Finally, in a surprising turn, we'll confront a twist that might just redefine the entire narrative. This is not just about cables, it is about the balance of power and about who controls the future. Prepare yourselves. This journey takes you to the dark heart of a new kind of war. Be sure to stay until the end, because we'll reveal all the answers and more. Chapter 1. The Baltic's Silent Battlefield. The Russian shadow fleet is not your conventional navy. It's a shadowy force operating under the radar, a collection of unmarked vessels, often old and poorly maintained, sailing under flags of convenience or shell companies. They are the maritime equivalent of a ghost army, and the Baltic Sea, with its complex underwater infrastructure, is their playground. These aren't just simple cargo ships. They are tools of a sophisticated operation, one that goes beyond economic maneuvering. These vessels are suspected of conducting sabotage, specifically targeting the vital network of submarine fiber optic cables that weave across the sea floor. These cables carry massive quantities of data, from financial transactions to military communications, and disruptions can send ripples far beyond the immediate region. The tactics are insidious and clandestine. The Russian Navy's alleged attempts to damage these cables using ship anchors, fishing gear, and sophisticated interference are not random acts. These deliberate actions aim to disrupt the West, undermining its stability by targeting these critical infrastructure. The area is a perfect location for these kinds of actions for the Russian shadow fleet, as it follows secret routes and does not use transponders. This makes it incredibly difficult to track, leading to a cat-and-mouse game that is difficult to control. The Baltic, once a peaceful sea, has become a space of strategic importance for NATO and the EU, as it borders countries like Norway, Denmark, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Sweden, and Finland. The tension is palpable, and the stakes could not be higher. The first move in this conflict, however, was not initiated by a conventional military power, but a Finnish government that made a strategic move against this threat. Chapter 2. Finland's Unexpected Gambit. Finland's recent action sent shockwaves through the Baltic. The Helsinki administration, it seemed, had enough of the invisible menace lurking beneath the waves. They didn't engage in saber-rattling. Instead, they made a decisive move. They seized a tanker carrying Russian oil in the Baltic Sea. The vessel, named Eagle S and flying a Cook Islands flag, was identified as part of Russia's shadow fleet, a fleet suspected of using old tankers to evade Western sanctions on the sale of Russian oil. This wasn't just a routine check, it was a calculated intervention, a direct challenge to Russia's shadowy operations. The Finnish Coast Guard boarded the tanker, towed it into Finnish territorial waters, and began their investigation. This has been described as both intelligent and a strategic success. This move was more than just about sanctions evasion. It was about a much more dangerous game being played underwater. According to Robin Lardo, director of the Finnish National Bureau of Investigation, a very large sabotage was being investigated. The Eagle S, it was suspected, was not just carrying oil. It had deliberately damaged a submarine cable with its anchor. This incident exposed Russia's shadow game, highlighting the vulnerabilities of critical underwater infrastructure. The tanker was then impounded by the Finnish customs, who also confirmed that they believed the ship belongs to Russia's shadowy fleet. This seizure, the first of its kind, has exposed Russia's strategy and triggered diplomatic anxiety in Moscow. This also shows the growing strategic importance of the Baltic Sea. Chapter 3. Estonia's rapid response and the global uproar. Estonia, Finland's neighbor and ally, was quick to react. The incident involving the Eagle S had a ripple effect, creating a sense of urgency in the Baltic region. Estonia recognized the potential for widespread disruption and swiftly implemented their own response, beginning naval patrols in the region amid growing suspicions. This was a direct reaction to the disruption in the connection of the Estlink 2 power grid with Finland and 4 telecommunication cables in the Baltic Sea. Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna announced on social media about these increasing suspicions and confirmed that the Estonian Defense Forces had begun patrolling with naval forces to protect the Sink 1 submarine cable. This showed their determination to prevent future acts of sabotage. Estonian Defense Minister Hanno Pevkur also confirmed that the nation had decided to send their navy close to Sink 1 to defend and secure the energy connection with Finland. They weren't just responding to a crisis, they were taking proactive measures to deter future attacks. These were strategic moves designed to send a clear message that such actions would not be tolerated. These measures were quickly applauded by the international community that had been alerted by this growing danger. The EU, through Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, addressed the issue and pledged to ensure the protection of Europe's critical infrastructure, including submarine cables. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas echoed these sentiments, emphasizing that the suspicious ship was part of Russia's shadow fleet, which threatened security and the environment. She also mentioned that they would be proposing further measures, including sanctions, to target the shadow fleet. This shows that the EU was united in its condemnation of Russian actions, further highlighting the global implications of this maritime conflict. Chapter 4. NATO's intervention and the shadow fleet's tactics. NATO, recognizing the far-reaching consequences, also swiftly entered the scene. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte condemned any attack on critical infrastructure, highlighting the disruption of the power grid between Finland and Estonia and the connection of telecommunication cables in the Baltic Sea. Rutte emphasized that NATO stands in solidarity with its allies and would oppose any attack on critical infrastructure. This shows that NATO is united and vigilant against these types of actions. The alliance was not just making statements, however, they are also providing support and following the ongoing investigations led by both Estonia and Finland. This coordinated response reflects a significant escalation of the conflict. The shadow fleet was using methods that pushed the international system to its limits. While some military sources close to Moscow suggested that the incidents could have been due to crew errors, the frequency and nature of the damage to underwater infrastructure made this claim unbelievable. Experts agree that the dragging of ship's anchors was no accident. The shadow fleet's activity wasn't limited to the Baltic. It was a global network that transported Russian oil from Europe to different parts of the world, including China and India. These uninsured and unregistered ships navigate the world's oceans to avoid sanctions, making up more than 10% of the global tanker fleet and accounting for almost 70% of all Russia's seaborne crude trade. This network, according to Western sources, consists of almost 600 tankers, either in violation of sanctions or at high risk of doing so. This shadow fleet is a critical revenue stream for the Russian war effort, making it a priority target for the West. Chapter 5. A twist in the narrative. The unforeseen consequences. The story we've told so far paints a picture of Russia's aggressive tactics, the quick responses of Finland and Estonia, and NATO's involvement. The global implications are very serious, but they might not be the only thing to worry about. The shadow fleet's dangerous operations were only part of the problem. It became apparent the level of risk of these ships has been unacceptably high. The old and ill-maintained vessels operated by the shadow fleet often refuse pilotage, making the risk of accidents enormous. One recent incident proves this. A shadow oil tanker, the Andromeda Star, managed by an unidentified company and sold to unidentified buyers, collided with a cargo ship off the Danish coast. The absence of standard Western insurance, and the presence of a mysterious Russian company that was unlikely to pay for any damages meant that the cost fell to Danish taxpayers. This was not just about sanctions evasion, but also about the reckless behavior that has put the region in real danger. What is even more unsettling is that these events were not isolated incidents. Similar operations had been observed in other areas of the world, particularly in the Mediterranean, where tankers carrying Russian oil were pushed into the Mediterranean by naval exercises conducted by NATO. This shows that the Baltic incident was just one part of an ongoing global struggle against Russian activity. The conflict is not just about power, money, and strategy. It is also about the safety of maritime routes. It shows that the Shadow Fleet's reckless tactics pose a very real threat to the environment and to the lives of people at sea. The conflict is therefore not just about a region or an alliance, but also about international maritime law and the safety of all vessels navigating the world's oceans. These factors mean that this situation is not only dangerous, but it is likely to get worse. As the international community grapples with these revelations, the need for effective and decisive action becomes clearer. The war is not just on land, but is also under the waves, and the consequences of inaction could be catastrophic. As we've seen, the situation in the Baltic Sea is far from resolved. Russia's Shadow Fleet poses a multifaceted threat that goes beyond economic concerns, and the potential consequences of inaction could be catastrophic. From sabotage operations on critical infrastructure to reckless endangerment of other vessels at sea, their actions show the lengths that they are prepared to go to. The global struggle is very real. Every action from Finland and Estonia to the intervention by NATO is a step in the right direction, but more action is needed. The international community must stand together and address this clear and present danger. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates. Stay informed and stay vigilant, because the world is a very dangerous place right now, and we all need to be alert.